Hello and welcome to round 3 of the Magic Online Championships. I'm Randy Buehler, joined by Eric Froelich, and we are getting ready to watch the feature match between Alexa Telerov and Jasper de Jong. These guys are 2-0 so far in Vintage, getting ready for this one last match before the lunch break. Matchup is going to be Delver versus Mentor. We're getting these guys loaded up and ready to go. See Nate Price poking in from the side, making sure we get everything lined up right.
Now, in this matchup, I typically prefer to be on the Mentor side. I think that it's able to go a little bigger. A lot of the cards are very similar, and you know, Mentor is going to have a bit of an advantage against Young Pyromancer, assuming you can't disrupt it to come down. In this one, I'm not so sure. I think I actually prefer to be on Alexa's side.
Yeah.
A lot of the reason is because Jasper only has 1 copy of Lightning Bolt and 1 Fire and Ice as removal spells, with nothing else in the sideboard that I actually want to bring in. He's got, you know, another copy of Monastery Mentor, but then a lot of anti-workshop cards. Well, Alexa has a Sudden Shock and 2 Sulfur Elementals, which do a lot of work against Monastery Mentors. So,
well, Alexa's also got 0 land in his hand.
That's unfortunate. He does have Gitaxian Probe, so you can gamble.
You can't keep 0 land Gitaxian Probe. I've seen it done, but I don't think I would keep 0 land Gitaxian Probe.
Well, Jasper's got turn 1 Probe, see what he hits, and no matter what, he can play turn 1 Dak Fane with Force of Will back up. With Treasure Cruise in hand, that's going to be fueled really fast with Probe, Black Lotus, Gush, and Dak Fane itself. So this is looking like turn 1 Dak Fane, turn 2 Treasure Cruise with Force of Will back up, and that is great.
Definitely. And he's on the play.
Yeah, I have Jasper as a monumental favorite to win this game looking at these 2 hands. And now Jasper's going to have perfect information just like us.
Yeah, Gitaxian Probe. He's going to see that there is a Force of Will and there's a misstep.
Yeah, the Force of Will is just going to run into Force of Will.
Yeah, Forces should cancel and Dak should resolve.
So it's going to be, you know, Jasper's got his own copy of Gush sitting in reserve and a Treasure Cruise against just a Gush and some land. So a great spot to be in when you're going to have Dak Fane in play.
Oh, Alexa's going to misstep the Probe. He's thinking about it. This Probe has not, in fact, resolved. It's actually on Alexa to decide if he wants to misstep it, and I think he's declined.
Yeah, it has resolved. I agree with the play to not misstep.
I do as well.
I mean, when your opponent is playing Gitaxian Probe, even if you don't know the matchup, you know that you're going to have a lot of great targets for your mental misstep. I mean, Ancestral Recall, Brainstorm, Ponder are just basically automatics, and then a bunch of preordains. That's like the very bottom of the line, no matter what you have. In this particular matchup, there's going to be, you know, Pyroblast, Lightning Bolt, Sensei's Divining Top, you know, a lot of good things that you can hit with your mental missteps, in addition to just other missteps.
Flusterstorm was the draw off the Probe, by the way. Which means
that makes it even better.
Yeah, he's not going to have to use a Force of Will and a blue card to defend this Dak Fane. He's actually going to be able, assuming he taps all his mana correctly.
Yeah, if he's only the Lotus for blue.
Yeah, sack the Lotus for blue, tap the Volcanic for red, have 1 blue floating when you put Dak Fane on the stack.
Fantastic first turn.
Oh my goodness. Now Alexa has to force this, right?
He does, but he knows it's not going to go very well because he just got probed. Or he has a pretty good idea that it's not going to go very well at the very least.
Yeah, I think you have to. He does.
I don't agree with discarding the Gush over the mental misstep just because you're probably going to need the Gush to get back into this game.
But yeah, here's that Flusterstorm. So Force of Will is going to get countered, what, 5 times? Pay 5 more mana, please. Oh, you haven't had a turn? Sorry.
Well, his hand is too good. He's not even going to want to discard anything with Dak.
Yeah, Dak's plus ability. Draw 2, then discard 2. And even if he likes all the cards in his hand, just getting cards into the graveyard is obviously valuable with a Treasure Cruise sitting there.
Yeah, as long as you don't just discard Treasure Cruise, things are looking pretty great. I think he probably wants to discard Gush and Preordain here, just have the mental misstep up as a way to defend against something like Ancestral Recall. Because he's so far ahead, and the Treasure Cruise is going to resolve next turn.
So you're keeping Cruise, Force, Misstep?
I think that's what I'm keeping. You don't really need the extra cards from Gush or the selection with Preordain when you have Treasure Cruise and Dak Fane is just in play. What that also does is allows you to have a great way to respond to a Pyroblast here, which is a common card in any deck that's playing Force of Will. Main deck Pyroblast is just something that people play.
Mm-hmm. All right, so he ships the turn. That was enough. That was turn 1. Resolve DAC, activate DAC, look at your hand, draw some cards. Dig through time off the top for Alexa. It's not nothing. But yeah, this DAC plus will put, we're at what, 5 cards in the yard already, so this will get it to 7. Becomes a 1-mana Treasure Cruise. Now what are you discarding? Probe?
I think just probe land.
Sure. I mean, there's some value in having the land.
There is.
Available, especially, I might... yeah, it's tricky.
I don't think it's as good as Pyroblast. And you are drawing 3 more cards.
If you could keep the land and the Pyroblast, then obviously you could use the Pyroblast to defend this Treasure Cruise if you needed to. But yeah, can't keep both of them and keep Force Blue cards. So.
Well, he actually knows every card but 1, right?
True.
The probe has already resolved. So he knows Misstep, Island, Tarn. So Force of Will could certainly stop Treasure Cruise, but he has a Force of Will of his own. He's not even forced to use it because he has the Planeswalker advantage. Like, Treasure Cruise is fantastic, and he probably would, but he's just like... the amount that he is ahead right now is obscene. Both draws by Alexa are quite good. Dig Through Time and Young Pyromancer are definitely cards that he wants to get back into this game. They're just not going to be fast enough. Especially the Dig Through Time now that the Pyroblast was drawn, doesn't even need to use a Force of Will, and is super far away from actually being able to delve enough cards right now. I expect that this Pyromancer is going to get forced. He still knows 2 out of 3 cards. The only unknown card is the Dig Through Time right now.
Yeah, he's looking at eyeing it up. Force of Will, pitching the Misstep.
I think you keep the Misstep and discard either Brainstorm or Preordain.
And Jasper agrees with you.
DAC will continue to tick up. Well, Mox Pearl is a pretty easy discard. The other one he wants to discard is... the land and the Mox are pretty similar.
Now, how does this game actually resolve? I mean, you're talking about De Jong being way ahead, way ahead, way ahead. What's he digging for? What needs to happen next?
Well, his way to actually win the game is Monastery Mentor. He also has 1 Jace the Mind Sculptor, which can ultimate and win the game as well. All he's doing is basically crafting a better and better hand every turn, so he's going to be able to cast Mentor with some protection, create a bunch of monks basically immediately, and there's no way to stop like a Mentor and basically a single monk, let alone a bunch of monks. So, and that's just when the game ends. He's basically looking for cards like Dig Through Time to pull further ahead and more permission. Already having the Pyroblast is a great spot to be in. The fact that he has Pyroblast and Misstep to defend Dig Through Time Misstep is a nice spot. So he's just loading up his graveyard for future delve cards and eventually going to look for a Mentor that will actually close this thing out. And it will close it out extremely quickly. I imagine he's not going to play this land and hold it to be able to discard it to Dak Vaden. Dak Vaden is interesting in that it really has no other function in this matchup besides ticking up. There's a couple artifacts to steal, a Mox Ruby and a Mox Sapphire. It's really it. And the ultimate just kind of does nothing. Should we show a little highlight of Dak Vaden? See, make it all big so we can read the ultimate?
Absolutely.
You gain an emblem that whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more permanents, you gain control of those permanents. So that can allow you to Pyroblast a land because it only destroys the permanent if it's blue. You're able to target anything, and you can create a monk with that. So that allows you to cast a spell whenever you want to be able to trigger your prowess and create a monk. There doesn't have to be a blue spell in the stack or a blue card in play. And so you can steal a permanent with Dak Vaden that way. But basically everything else is not really going to have that effect. You're looking at like strip mine effects, which will just kill something. and lightning bolts.
So Delver runs into mental misstep here, and now what?
I imagine Alexa's going to come back with his own mental misstep, and I'm not sure what Jasper will do about that. I imagine he'll just let it resolve. See what he draws off Dakvaden and see if he cares about the Delver, because Pyroblast doesn't need to counter the Delver. It can destroy once it's in play. So he has that option available to him. Being able to have Pyroblast in hand is pretty nice protection, especially he doesn't know that Alexa has a Dig Through Time in hand, but that's one of the most powerful cards in all matchups, let alone this one. So he really doesn't want that Dig Through Time to resolve. But that's assuming that Alexa's A-Evolve drawn it and he doesn't hit something off Dakvaden that will already counter it.
This game actually doesn't look nearly as lopsided as I would have expected after that many DAC activations.
No, I mean, DAC is not card advantage, it's card selection. You're drawing 2 and discarding 2. So if you're not hitting the perfect cards, or you need to cast things like Dig Through Time, which will actually leave you down cards, you're not actually pulling that far ahead. Like, we saw him discarding things like Brainstorm and Preordain that help select more cards, and you really just haven't found a lot of his action. Like Strip Mines and Mental Missteps and Islands, they don't actually provide action. Sensei's Dividing Top's the closest that we've seen to a card that actually does something, like impacts the game in a real way. I imagine both lands will get discarded here. Strip Mine, really not exciting. This top will resolve.
It actually looked briefly like Alexa might actually be in position to resolve that Dig Through Time, but he used his misstep to get the Delver into play, and then
he still only has 4 cards in his graveyard, so a little bit away. He can certainly try to cast it next turn.
The Scalding Tarn gets it to 5.
Right, but he can't cast it right now.
True. I was just looking at the way the Pyroblast was going to run into a misstep. Now that second, the misstep's no longer in Alexa's hand, but there is one in Jasper's. So.
Right. I mean, Jasper used a misstep to get rid of the misstep, trying to counter the Delver Secrets. It didn't work. He's looking to flip this with a nice one. Although, Jasper's hand is pretty well equipped to stop most things that you would draw off Delver. Now, this is a pretty cute interaction that a lot of new players might not know. What Delver does, it has a trigger during your upkeep. You look at the top card. You may choose to reveal that if it's an instant or sorcery, and you can flip Delver of Secrets into an Insectile Aberration, which is a 3/2 flyer. Now, Alexa saw the top card of his library. I assume it was a land or something that he just didn't want to draw, and what you can then do is choose to use your fetch land and shuffle that card away before you draw it, because that's an upkeep ability. So it's a good way to try to get rid of a card that you were going to draw, but that you now got to see with Delver of Secrets you didn't want, and you got to get rid of it.
He played it well, but he still drew Flooded Strand.
He did, yeah. He continued to be flooded with a Flooded Strand.
Here is the attempt for Dig Through Time. It's the last card out of his hand, though, so Jasper de Jong knows that this Pyroblast is just going to work. And now Telerov's basically all in on this Delver.
So he doesn't use upkeep top. Not that top is especially exciting when you're just going to be using Dakvaden anyway.
But yeah, he could have spent a mana to manipulate his draw phase. Going to do that now.
Yeah, that kind of works out the same way when you're going to be drawing the top 2 and discarding 2 with Dakvaden. See what you draw. You might want 3 mana to just cast Monastery Mentor. Alright, well, Time Walk is always a sweet card when you have a Planeswalker in play. Just being able to use the ability again is very powerful. Still not finding anything, any great action, although there's Dig Through Time. That's the one he's looking for.
Down goes Mana Crypt and Mental Misstep. Got 1 misstep available. Opponent's got no cards in hand. This Dig is definitely going to resolve.
Yeah, Dig Through Time in Vintage is very akin to basically 2 demonic tutors. I mean, looking at the top 7, there's so many incredibly powerful cards that taking 2 of them is just fantastic. And
he's only got 29 cards left in his library. He's kind of already seen half of it. Apparently, I don't know if he's putting mentors on the bottom with this or if those mentors are just hiding.
Yeah, there's only 2 mentors in this deck. So.
Right.
Well, if he is putting them on the bottom, he'll be more likely to play this Misty Rainforest to be able to shuffle and get more access to those cards. At this point, Jasper has far more counterspells than Alexa has cards in hand at 3-0.
Delver chipping away.
Delver continues to not flip. Really did not want to see another land.
Yeah, this match might have gotten a little closer if Delver had flipped right away.
A little closer, but I mean, like, Alexa could certainly steal the game. It's just very, very unlikely. There's Lightning Bolt. That'll take care of Delver if he wants it to.
Let's see if we can find a mentor first. Still no.
This is why you need Notion Thief.
Yeah, with Notion Thief in play, Dax Plus becomes I draw 2, you discard 2.
Think he wants to discard Mox and land here, just hold on to the blue card for Forcible?
Even though it's just a backup DAC?
It's a backup. It's a Forcible.
It's a Forcible card, sure. Huh. Kept the Tundra.
Definitely not a big difference, but I do think that is a minor misstep.
I actually would have kept the Mox.
Well, the Mox would be better than Tundra, yeah, because it will trigger Monastery Mentor.
Delver still refuses to flip. Mox Ruby is the draw. I mean, Jasper doesn't know what cards Alexa's actually drawing, but he knows they're not spells.
That is true. Actually, I guess what Jasper was trying to do was, it didn't matter if he kept the Mox or the land because he was just playing the land to hard cast Forcible.
Yeah, getting to 5 certainly has value here.
Not a ton of value, but he is very far ahead. But it is, I guess, a very reasonable play. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, he set that up with the top. 2 mana floating, gush.
Only 19 cards left in the deck.
17 cards left in the deck.
Still no mentor. I feel like Alexa's probably playing this out for information at this point. He's going to get to see almost every card in Jasper's deck. Well, there are mentors in there somewhere, I'm assuming.
I mean, they're in the list. It's not one of those where you sideboard out your victory condition and assume your opponent will just concede at some point.
Well, if that's what happened, he's going to have to start targeting Alexa with that deck fading pretty soon.
It's 44 cards to 14. Jasper de Jong has gone through 30 cards more than Alexa Telerov.
That's not a small number.
30! That's insane.
Well, he does have a Planeswalker on 11.
He does.
It starts on 3.
The other 2 undefeateds, by the way, are Lars Dom, who we've seen doing well with his workshop deck, won a feature match and beat Ularade. Magnus Lanto is the other undefeated, and he's on the same Cabal Therapy Grixis Controlly list that Ula's playing. The 2 of them are the 2 Swedish players in this tournament. Definitely work together. So Lars has got the same matchup he already won in round 2.
Sweet. Yeah, I believe that Alexa is playing this out because this is the first time that the clock may come into play.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, we're already down to 14 minutes, and we're still in game 1. So should Alexa be able to win game 2, especially a more drawn-out game,
It's a good point.
It's very possible.
Dig to see over half his library.
It's a lot of cards. But it will also take some time. So this should find Mentor, which will end the game basically immediately.
It has to find Mentor unless the last dig put it on the bottom.
Well, he shuffled.
Oh, he shuffled since then? Sure. Doesn't have to, I guess. Odds are.
Yeah, I mean, between Gush and Sensei's Divining Top.
Pyroblast?
Nope.
Library of Alexandria.
Okay. And we wait.
It'd actually be... I don't think he even can deck him now. Like, Dax +2 ability isn't fast enough.
No, not even close.
11 cards in library to 43.
Close, but
it's close.
He'll still be about 10 short, I'm guessing.
If he could use if you could target your opponent with library, then he'd have a shot.
Yeah. Well, it could be hard to get Alexa to 7 cards.
All right. Alexa Telerov plays a young Pyromancer. Jasper DeYoung allows that to resolve.
Still no Mentor.
Draws with the library. Sorts through the top 3 with the Divining Top. There it is.
Ooh, what does
Monastery Mentor. I think what that does is trigger the Fire Ice to go kill young Pyromancer, among other things. Part of the reason he wanted the Pyromancer... He didn't want to fight the Pyromancer fight. He wants to get a Mentor into play before he starts unloading his handful of cards. He's embleming. He's going to steal a young Pyromancer. That's hilarious.
He's gonna put it on ice.
Why fire the young Pyromancer when you can ice it? Awesome. The DAC emblem.
Interesting to not play the Mentor first.
Oh, he didn't play the Mentor first. You're right.
Not that it matters, but... Yeah, playing the Mentor first means he'd have multiple monks in play right now, which would be pretty cool, but really doesn't matter what he does at this point. It's...
Wow, he allowed Alexa to Lightning Bolt his own Pyromancer, thus fizzling the ice.
Yeah, he's not going to need a Pyromancer when he has a Monastery Mentor. This thing...
I'm just thinking about how many monks there could have been.
Oh yeah, this thing will end the game next turn, though. He's going to get to cast Gush, replay a land, Pyroblast anything he wants, or Ponder. There will be enough monks that he will be dealing lethal damage next turn, I imagine.
So the DAC emblem did do something. Oh, there's the second monk. Finally, he's got
the DAC emblem
9
pretty
cards
much
in his
what won
hand.
this game.
It's all about the DAC emblem. He should. He discarded the Ponder?
Yeah, don't agree with that, but again, nothing really matters.
Right, yeah. Could have made another monk token.
Oh, another young Pyromancer. Anything that gets cast, which is part of the reason why you just keep blue cards. Okay, didn't force a will it. Interesting.
He can Pyroblast it. He can steal it.
He could.
Pyroblast can only target blue spells on the stack, but when it can target...
creates a monk, and then he can Pyroblast, steal it, and trigger prowess, and just kill his opponent. Didn't do that either. Now he's casting the Mentor first. Just showboating, but using clock.
Sensei's Divining Top flips for the top card so that he can get it back into his hand. Sensei's Divining Top is pretty good at making sure that you always have the ability to trigger your monks. Divining Top creates 2 monks in this case and triggers prowess on the first batch.
There's also a somewhat reasonable chance if you haven't played a lot of Vintage or Legacy that you don't know that Pyroblast can target anything you want.
Yeah, it's the difference between Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast. Red Elemental Blast can only target blue things. Pyroblast can target anything. and then destroy it if it's blue.
Mm-hmm. Imagine we just won't see Alexa concede and just keep making all these triggers happen.
He is up.
To the
What? He's up
on the clock.
4 minutes on clock. It's game 1, and his opponent's down to 11 minutes. This is, look, it's a part of playing Magic on Magic Online, right?
Yeah,
you have 25-minute
more than
clocks.
half his clock, and we're in game 1.
These mentors are going to win
now
this
he's
game.
Just casting a Mox to force his opponent to click OK.
Pretty much. And his opponent is flipping the Sensei Divining Top back onto the top
Alexa's
of his library
very happy
again.
about that. It's like, yeah, put all these triggers on the stack that you want.
1, 2, 3, 4. All these triggers. Make 2 monks. Make all the other things +1/+1.
Yeah, Aspero's really at the point where he couldn't lose about 6 minutes ago on his clock and used a lot of time trying to actually figure out how to win. So, you know, could be something that matters. He didn't cast the Pyroblast.
He didn't cast the Pyroblast. He could have targeted anything on the table with the Pyroblast and won the game there. But instead, we're going to play for another turn.
Bunch more triggers.
And there it is. Finally, with 10 minutes left on his clock for the round, Jasper de Jong finally wins the first game.
And things are not going to get easier for him after sideboarding. He certainly can win the next game, but if it goes to 3, he might be in a tough spot. As we noted in the pregame, Alexa's sideboard is pretty good for this matchup. 2 copies of Sulfur Elemental. We saw with BDM in the red zone, that's something that just wipes out all the monks and makes all future monks, do nothing. They just die instantly. Sudden Shock kills Monastery Mentor before. You can't respond to that. You can't counter it. You can't put a prowess trigger on the stack. That's just going to take it down. And also 2 copies of Pyroblast, which, you're playing against a blue control deck that has blue Planeswalkers, a bunch of blue card draw spells, and a bunch of blue permission. Pyroblast is really powerful.
You want to know how long that game 1 was? Every other match in the tournament is over.
Wow.
7 matches are complete, and we just finished game 1 of this one.
Yeah, I wanted to note multiple times when we were watching like the red zone matches and the matches we've done here in the feature match area that they've had a lot of time on their clocks. These people are very proficient playing on Magic Online. Yeah. They have, at least some experience playing their decks, but a ton of experience playing on the client and really just know the ins and outs and, know the shortcuts and know the attack all buttons and, being able to tap your mana correctly, which is not always the easiest thing when you've got, your dual lands out there to tap for blue or use the M key and the various shortcuts. Like, there are a lot of very cool tricks on Magic Online, and there's no doubt that these players know them and ways to make sure that their clocks are not the ones getting wasted.
25-minute match clocks in effect for each player. This is typical Magic Online. And yeah, we saw game 2 start would be like 24 minutes to 23.5 minutes, but not this one. This Mentor control deck took a little while to win that, and only the 2 Mentors.
Wow, is he boarding out his Moxes and Lotus?
Bringing in Null Rod? He brought in a Null Rod.
That is something I've never considered, I can safely say. Interesting.
The Lightning Bolts are also out.
Null Rod is fine, but, especially on the play, this fast mana is, a way to basically win the game before anything happens.
Yeah, so you would, when you have Null Rod in your deck, you're okay having a Ruby, a Sapphire, and a Lotus.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, certainly that's, I play the Merfolk deck that I've played in Vintage Super League. Well, it wants the Sapphire and the Lotus and multiple Null Rods.
I just don't think Null Rod is good in this matchup.
Is he trying to turn off Divining Top? With 10 minutes on his clock, don't you want the Divining Top to be activatable?
Yeah, Divining Top is a great combination with Monastery Mentor to be able to do some exciting things. But you already have a lot of good answers to Mentor. He's boarding out, it looks like he's thinking about boarding out 4 Lightning Bolts, which is, I don't know. When your opponent's going to have a few copies of Monastery Mentor and something like Jace the Mind Sculptor, that's not necessarily something I agree with. And boarding out Moxes is certainly not something I agree with. He does have some powerful cards, though, although he just made it really hard to cast like Sulfur Elemental. He's only playing 15 lands.
All right, well, let's see what happens. Telerov's got 14.5 minutes on his clock. Jasper de Jong has 10.5.
Look at this Null Rod.
Oh, my goodness.
If only he had a Mox to cast it on turn 1.
Well, there is that. Yeah. Double Mox draw from Jasper de Jong. No lands, 2 Moxes. The Singleton Null Rod could be absolutely devastating here.
Well, what we need to figure out the last card in Jasper's hand is. Although I guess we don't because he mulliganed. Although we still wouldn't mind knowing what the last card in his hand is.
Yeah, we'll get him to open his graveyard so that we can see all his cards.
I would be hard-pressed to mulligan that hand with any 7th card. He had 2 Moxes and I believe 2 Probes with a Monastery Mentor, so if he draws a Mana Source off the top, he can go Mentor, Probe, or he can Probe into a Mana Source. Like, if he has a Mana Source on the top 2, he gets to go turn 1 Mentor, Probe, make a Monk, and if he just doesn't find a Mana Source, he gets to cast 2 Probes. So now he's got a Library of Alexandria on the draw, one of the most powerful things you can have. Just taps to draw a card. But you need to have 7 cards, so on a mull to 5, doesn't actually do what you want it to do.
And now, this is, once again, a hand that Null Rod could hurt pretty severely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Gonna take
the combination of Library of Alexandria and Gush is just fantastic, though. You're able to return 2 islands to your hand, draw 2 cards, and you're able to move your hand from, effectively, 4 cards to 7. On the spot, you'll spend a card on Gush going down to 3, 2 islands go to your hand, go to 5, and then the actual Gush resolves and you go to 7 cards in hand. So a huge swing.
Telerov did find a second land, but he had to use a preordain to do it. So no Null Rod yet.
I wonder if he's just
he's gonna hold the Lotus and the Sapphire.
He's still gonna be pretty far behind.
You're a mentor
actually
deck.
Gushing and librarying. Yeah. Telerov sees no reason to cast Null Rod as there's no artifacts in play. Might as well just cast Preordain and leave up Pyroblast.
And Delver chipping away. Jasper down to 11 already.
Dig Through Time. Great card. Yeah, I'm curious how much experience Jasper actually has playing his deck, and whether he's going to be able to pilot a very fast game to
he's setting up
to win a potential game 3. Yeah, it looks like he's looking to hard cast.
He wants to hard cast Gush. Yeah, he wants to pay 5 for it, which is not going to get him onto the library plan, but is going to leave him with a well-developed board. In theory, if it wasn't for the Null Rod that's about to happen.
I think if I'm Alexa, I just play Young Pyromancer here. You're facing down a hand of just 2 cards. And if my opponent casts Gush, I would just let it resolve. I'm not worried about inspiration.
Sure.
And my opponent already has 3 mana in play that the Null Rod is not, it's just not doing that much. So I on this turn, I would play Young Pyromancer with Force of Will backup. And if my opponent hard casts Gush, I'd be all right, sure, go for it.
Gush is going to come as a response to Young Pyromancer so that if Telerov wants to fight, he won't get any elemental tokens from the fight.
Yeah. So I think this is a pretty easy decision to let this resolve. And he agrees. So I think Jasper probably wants to lead with Time Walk. Hope it gets countered. And now he gets to play Dig Through Time right now. This will get countered. You can see Alexa already highlighting over Force of Will once he saw that graveyard start to light up. You know a Delve spell is coming. You don't know if it's Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time, but you know you want to counter it. And now this game is completely over.
Yeah, and
Jasper's just going to concede rather than potentially waste more clock. And so he does have a lot of time for a game 3 where he will be able to think through a lot of decisions now.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a pretty veteran Magic Online move right there.
Absolutely.
He knows that he's kind of on the short side of the clock fight.
Yeah.
He knows
the game's completely over. He can never win the game, and it's going to end in 2 turns. That 15 seconds might matter. It probably won't because he does have a significant amount of time. It looked like he still had 9 minutes left. That's a lot of time to be able to think about a game. You know what the matchup is fully now. You know what you're up against, and you know your general game plan. I mean, you've tested for this event. You've played multiple rounds. You're in a game 3, so I think he's going to be pretty confident that he can finish a game with relative ease at this point.
We do have a lunch break coming up after this round. We'll just be gone for about 30 minutes, and then we'll be back with Modern.
I wonder if Alexa is going to go back to the sideboard, maybe bring in some of his artifact mana now that he's on the draw.
I don't know.
I know I certainly would.
You wouldn't have taken it out in the first place.
Great point.
Yeah, that no rod is pretty solid. I mean, it is a powerful card. It's a powerful Magic card.
Yeah, I mean, you're still playing a 15-land deck. You're cutting 3 mana sources and then putting in a bunch of 3s.
I wouldn't cut.
Ooh, well, there we go. Okay, Black Lotus found its way back in.
There we go. All right.
Cutting Black Lotus from your deck is
yeah,
gutsy.
I like
gutsy is the word.
I like the no rod. I think you can pair it with mana. It's all right. Last game of Vintage. It is 1-1. The winner will be 3-0.
Give him to pop out.
We need to get the graveyards popped out again so we can see all the cards.
Wow, these hands are kind of great. Alexa's hand's a little slow in that none of his cards can actually be cast for free. They all are going to take a 1-mana investment, but they all cost 1. Yeah, this looks like it's going to be a pretty sweet game. Looks like a turn 1 time walk. Which would resolve without a fight, even if Alexa had the cards to fight it, I believe. But no way to respond to that. These Spell Pierces, Alexa has 2 of them in his hand, and Jasper has 4 mana in play before Alexa's able to take a first turn. And now he has Ancestral with Force backup. Alexa has no response to the Ancestral Recall, no missteps in hand, no Force of Wills, not that they would do anything anyway. And so these Spell Piercers are getting outclassed pretty quickly. And what Jasper really wants to draw off this Ancestral, not that he necessarily knows it, are copies of Mental Misstep to be able to fight against Alexa's Ancestral Recall. And Mental Misstep is just good. It like counters every single card in Alexa's hand for an investment of 0 mana plus turning on Treasure Cruise. So pretty insane. I imagine Jasper's just going to Ancestral himself right now. Taking a long think on it.
Tick, 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 tick.
7 minutes is a lot of time.
Oh, yeah, 7 minutes should be plenty. I agree. Goes for the Ancestral Recall, targeting himself, of course.
Going to resolve with no fight, and that's going to feel good.
Yeah, definitely.
So he can actually cast Preordain and cast Treasure Cruise this turn. Pretty insane. So he's just going to have a full hand with at least Force of Will Jace. Or he's not going to cast the Preordain first. Interesting. I guess he just wants to have the blue card to pitch the Force of Will. I don't agree with that, but...
It's not crazy.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
So he's done enough. Down to 6 minutes, but
interestingly, Alexa
4 mana
really
in play,
wants
7
Mock
to 7
Sapphire here to try to catch up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's the Mentor.
Huge.
Now, do you lead with the Mentor first, or do you try to get Jace down?
No, I lead with the Mentor first. It's just going to create an army this turn. He gets the...
You get to play the Mox and the Preordain.
Yeah, and who knows what he finds. I imagine Alexa's going to respond here with Ancestral Recall. I think Jasper wants to force this, probably discarding the Preordain. It's going to cost you a Monk, but so be it.
You could force discarding Force.
Yeah, that's pretty risky.
It's more fun, though. You keep Jace Preordain.
I think Force of Will is just a more powerful card than Preordain. Well, you let it resolve.
You let it resolve, and Alexa found Force of Will.
Yeah, all you did was basically give your opponent a free Force of Will. He could have just countered the Ancestral and not had all those extra cards in his hand.
But yeah, now he has to force the Force, and he pitches Force of Will, so he's keeping Jace Preordain, the slightly riskier but definitely more fun line.
Again, Alexa really wants to find a Mox I don't think is in his deck right now.
Sure.
But it would be fantastic if he could cast a Sulfur Elemental right away. He could also find Lotus, which I believe he put back in at the last second.
The other undefeated match, by the way, was Lars Dom versus Magnus Lanto, and it was Magnus Lanto who got it done.
Wow.
So The other Swedish player, the one who's not Ularade, but is worked with Ula, playing the same basic deck, the sort of Snapcaster Mage, Young Pyromancer, Cabal Therapy control. Lars turns out to be mortal. Our defending champ has been knocked off. He's no longer king of the hill, I guess. Still got to feel good at 2-1. But I guess it means Magnus will be playing the winner of this match in Modern.
Yeah,
Due to the miracle of Swiss pairings.
It's a good thing he has Mentor in play, trying to write down the hand with the clock has turned yellow, gold, some color.
I think it's supposed to be yellow.
If that Sulfur Elemental is able to come down before Alexa is just dead, yeah, the game could shift a little bit. The Jace can come down and just bounce it, which is pretty powerful. Of course, the thing has flash, so it really depends on how the turns actually line up, whether there'll be an opportunity to use that.
Nox Jet, triggering.
The most important thing Alexa can draw right now is fast mana.
Volcanic Islands.
Kind of needs to preordain into Black Lotus. Again, boarding out the Moxes has been rough. I mean, if he had Lightning Bolt to kill the Mentor, that's a start, but I think he boarded out all the Lightning Bolts too. Does have Sudden Shock in his deck, but ooh.
Jump blocker. He's trying to buy time.
Yeah, but you have to lead with preordain. What if he found Black Lotus? I guess if he finds Black Lotus, he's still fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's because we can see the hand. Like, you might have wanted Spell Pierce up or something. Who knows? Like, the Delver is very weak, and leading on that, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you might have wanted to cast 2 preordains to try to find this Black Lotus. Like, more often than not right now, I believe Alexa will die on the spot. It's just a very likely outcome.
Mentors add up quick. It is certainly. Looks like he found a misstep.
Yeah, it's not going to do it.
Dak Faden coming down, triggering prowess. So, what do we got? Now we're up to 2, 4, 6, 9 power. Jace would get us to 13 power worth of attackers.
Would.
It's hard to get to 18 here. I feel like Alexa's going to get another turn.
I mean, you use a Mox.
All right. Dak reveals a second Dak and a mental misstep.
All right, so he'll discard Dak and a land here and play Jace and leave up misstep. It's pretty great. Yeah, this game is basically just going to end there. He gets to attack for a lot.
That Sulfur Elemental, it seems like it's probably gonna have a window.
Yeah.
To kill all the monks, though.
It is, but there's gonna be 2 Planeswalkers in play and the Mentor.
Sure.
Where do you go from there? Like, he discards, yeah, those 2 cards, plays Jace, bounces Delver, gets in for 13. The Sulfur Elemental can come down, but
there is
it's just too slow. He just had to have fast mana. Lots
of triggers. He's now automatically yielding to some of the triggers. 3 minutes on his clock. Jace does in fact bounce Delver, and here is 4 attackers.
Down to 5. Ooh, another Sulfur Elemental.
Oh.
Yeah. If he had the Lotus or a Mox last turn, the game might be over the other way.
Yeah, 2 Sulfur Elementals would kill the Mentor.
I mean, there are multiple Planeswalkers. It's not for sure what would have happened, but wow, we would have had an amazing game. It would have been really tough to win in 3 minutes at the very least.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Telerov finally gets a 3rd turn. I mean, look at all Jasper de Jong's been able to do
in the time. Turn 1 double Mox Time Walk and Treasure Cruise, I think he got to pass with 4 mana and 7 cards in hand on turn 1.
Pretty much.
Just amazing. Great draw. Alexa really just needed a mental misstep. Would have really helped things a lot, and then he needed to have Moxes in his deck. That's the bottom line.
I think these guys have acquitted themselves pretty well for Vintage. The Sulfur Elemental coming down, killing all the monks.
So he is main facing it, which will allow Jace to bounce it, which means 2 prowess triggers will end the game. He found no prowess triggers, though.
I think I like main. I think main phasing it there is reasonable.
Yeah, yeah.
Opponent's all tapped out.
Well, it has split second.
Oh. Forgot about split second. This card does lots. Flash and split second. It still means you can't respond. I guess you couldn't have responded with triggering prowess anyway.
Nope.
It's just really good against Mentor, isn't it?
It is pretty solid, yeah.
Yeah, these guys have acquitted themselves well in Vintage. I stand by my story. I mean, I've gotten every interaction exactly perfect, but like I said, I don't think many of these guys play a lot of Vintage.
Mentor comes in. Alexa down to 2.
Yep. 2 minutes on the clock. 2 points of life left for Alexa Telerov. Now, what can he do about this?
Well, he can play Delver as a chump blocker and leave up Flashed and Sulfur Elemental.
Yep.
Something. The thing is, Alexa's going to see so many cards, and he's not under any pressure whatsoever and really can't be. And he has burn spells in his deck. Mental Misstep can't be cast for free. Not that it really matters, as Jasper has his own Mental Misstep. I guess what ends up... Yeah, he casts Delver here. I assume Jasper uses his Mental Misstep, which is fine. It makes a Monk. The Sulfur Elemental, though, will kill the Monk. The problem is, if your opponent makes a Monk and your plan is to cast Sulfur Elemental, if they're able to use DAC main phase and are able to cast a spell to trigger prowess, if you respond with Sulfur Elemental, Jace will just bounce it and you'll die. So it looks like Jasper's going to win this game next turn under most circumstances. If he casts a spell and it gets missteps, he's just over.
All right, here's Dax plus ability.
Wow.
Pyroblast and Dig Through Time. So you discard Scalding Tarn and looks like the misstep. Here comes Dig Through Time, which is going to trigger prowess and make a Monk. Ularade did win his round 3, by the way. So Ula's 2-1 in Vintage. Antonio Del Moraleon also won his match, so the Pro Tour champ, 2-1 as well. Our other Pro Tour champion, however, did not do quite as well. Martin Dang lost that round to fall to 1 and 2. My result looked confusing because it's Martin defeats Dang, but that's Maxime Martin over Martin Dang.
It's a mirror. They respond with Brainstorm. Okay. Really just finding nothing. Not that there's much he could find. If he found Force of Will, he wouldn't be able to cast Sulfur Elemental because he would go to 1 from the Force of Will. The Scalding Tarn would then kill him. So, not sure what he was really looking for with the Brainstorm. Not that it matters, unless Jasper gets disconnected for 80 seconds. Oh, he finds Lightning Bolt.
Lightning Bolt.
I assume he will attempt to attack here. He may Jace first to Brainstorm if he wants to.
That is the plan. He knows about the Sulfur Elemental. He obviously bounced it last turn with a Jace, so by attacking for lethal, Jasper DeYoung, I think, expects that he'll be forcing Alexa to commit everything to a Sulfur Elemental, and then he can just clean it up with a Lightning Bolt.
Yep. Lightning Bolt to the face will do that. We'll get the job done.
Got to get his money's worth out of that clock, though. Now we're into the red. 47 seconds.
Casting
gushing.
He has no need to cast.
Now it's a 4-power Monastery Mentor. All right, he was looking for more permission, is I think what he was doing, to make sure this Lightning Bolt would resolve.
He couldn't find anything. He put those 2 cards on top.
And there you go. Lightning Bolt for the win. So Jasper DeYoung, 3-0, defeats Alexa Telerov 2-1. Fully 38 seconds left on his clock at the end of the game.
Fully.
No problem. No problem. Hey, everybody. I'm Randy with Eric. We are moving into our lunch break shortly, but we got a Red Zone highlight for you first. Brian has been waiting patiently, eager to show you guys some action from off-camera this round. Let's send it down to Brian.
Thanks, guys. That was a real nail biter you were watching there, though. I was super excited throughout that whole game. We were trying to figure out there were so many cards in hand. That was the top of the bracket. That was the 2-0 players. Had a chance to watch the 0-2 players, really just hoping to go into Modern, salvaging a win here. Shintaro Ishimura playing against Lucas Dushau, and we pick up the action with Lucas leading off with a Black Lotus. He's got a Tundra. He makes a young Pyromancer, and he casts Preordain and passes turn 1, and
not bad for Duco.
Just a great opening. Ishimura's playing a deck we have not seen on camera yet this tournament. There you see the
there it
Fast
is.
So
there it is. This looks like the deck I'm going to be playing at Friday Night Magic tonight.
And this is, of course, and there's there's Gush. This is all turn 1.
Ancestral. Oh, love it.
Right. So Ancestral, now he's fast bonding. There's a Mox Jet. Keep going. There's Necropotence, Randy.
Wow. Turn 1.
One of your favorite cards. Turn 1 without a ritual.
He's got the wrong art, though. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So now we see he just goes down. He's at 8.
Jeez. Let's drop a new hand.
Yep. Reloads. Now he has to discard.
Wow. Discards Dark Rituals.
And now turn 2. Brainstorm for Lucas. Turn 2.
Opponent only has 4 lands, a Mox, a Necro, and a Fast Bond. No problem.
He's going to get Ishimura down to 5 here with that attack. And then, but Ishimura just... There's the Doomsday.
There's the Doomsday from
Eric,
4 down to 2.
What do you do with the Doomsday? What is he doing here?
Well, it really depends on what he has in his hand. If he has any way to draw cards, it's just going to end the game on the spot.
Yeah,
all you have to do is put anything on top of your library that you're going to draw that will draw more cards. You're basically looking at Ancestral Recall. Let's say if he casts Gush right here.
Yeah, so he's gushing as a response. Oh, this is...
no, this is
Lucas Duco.
Duco gushing in response.
Sure.
Yeah, if he's able to draw any cards, it allows him to draw Ancestral Recall, which will put him down to 1 or 0 cards in his library, cast Lab Maniac with all this extra mana, and then cast Gush or Ancestral Recall or any card drawing spell to deck himself, which will allow Lab Maniac to win the game for him.
Yeah. Pay half your life.
Preordain.
Pick 5 cards. Oh, misstep to fight the Preordain.
Force of Will. Ishimura goes to 1.
Don't accidentally play a land.
Yeah. Preordain resolves, so that's going to draw him into a Gush, which is going to draw him into... He's down to 2 cards in his library.
Another Gush.
Down to 0 cards in his library.
There's the Maniac.
Laboratory Maniac.
Pays for the Brainstorm, and that is going to be the game.
Yeah, but open up Laboratory Maniac. Let's make sure people understand what this crazy deck does. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, instead of losing the game, win it.
That is way better than losing it.
Yes. That is usually that is the most straightforward kill in the Doomsday deck.
So, and by the way, that's a turn 2 kill. We talked about turn 1 kills, but that is a turn 2 kill for Ishimura.
When you're able to lead Fastbond to Gush, he's kind of unlucky to not win turn 1.
Yeah, no, I saw the Fastbond Gush. I'm like, did we get a turn 1 kill? They're not that common in Vintage. Like, there's so many Force of Wills and Mental Missteps floating around that we've seen, 2 of them in 2 seasons of Vintage Super League? We played, like,
hundreds of matches?
I think it's around 200 matches now.
So I've got game 2 queued up here. This was a weird one. So, oops, sorry, I skipped through some turns there. But Sapphire got Spell Pierced.
Oh, wow, Spell Pierced for Sapphire.
Preordain got Pyroblasted. And Time Walk for Duco. And he's got a Delver Secrets, but that gets Force of Willed. And then I'm going to start clicking through turns here because...
Nothing happens.
Turn 4. Turn 5.
Crazy.
Turn 6. Turn 7.
That was a Duress.
We see a Duress get Mental Misstepped. And then... So now we're going into Shintaro's turn 7. He's got to get Taxi and Probe. There's a Misty Rainforest. Plays a Time Walk. And then taps 3 lands. There's
I guess
a
he liked what he
Doomsday.
saw from that Gataxian probe. Yeah,
So.
pays half his life. Gets to stack 5 cards onto his library.
So he's at 7. And Dukehouse, so bolts him down to 4.
Yeah, it does. Looks like there's no card drawing card for Shintaro, so he had to say go. He's using his draw step to bootstrap his way into this Doomsday pile.
So there's a Duress. Takes a Pyroblast. Pyroblast has been a nightmare, by the way, for Ishimura. He had the Laboratory Maniac kill set up in round 1 and got his Maniac Pyroblasted in response to the card draw. So he actually killed himself by failing to draw. So there's a Gush. There's a Lotus. There's a Yawgmoth's Will. So Force of Will met with Force of Will. And then there's a Black Lotus out of the yard. There's a Gush. There's a Dark Ritual. And there's Tendrils of Agony.
Ah, the other kill card.
Yes. So we saw both kills here, and this was the game. So
Tendrils of
Ishimura
Agony
salvages his vintage run. He came close a couple times. It looked like he was maybe even learning the deck a little bit as he went along.
I see there's 7:44 on his clock, and that's the end of game 2. So
Yeah. So he goes to 1 and 2, and Ducho goes to 0 and 3 here. So, but that was it. I just kind of wanted to show the Doomsday deck. I've been keeping an eye on Ishimura throughout this tournament, and finally he got things. I talked to him between rounds, and he was like, "Yeah, finally, I got it to work." So, kind of fun to watch. Back to you guys.
fun stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a fun deck to watch go. We've hit the lunch break.
We've hit the end of vintage for the day.
Aren't you coming to Friday Night Magic with me?
They've hit the end of vintage
They've
for
hit
the
the end
day.
of vintage. If you're
Right,
in
so
town,
suddenly Eric smiles.
I don't get a smile.
I get to play vintage. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
You got me.
We are going to take a lunch break now. When we come back from the lunch break, and we're already into the lunch break, the players are already off eating, so it shouldn't be too long of a break. When we come back, it'll be time for Modern. We will get to see a new batch of decks. We'll line up the standings for you guys, see how things are going. So don't go too far. We'll be back shortly with more coverage of the Magic Online Championships.
Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at the Magic Online Championship. Marshall Sutcliffe. I've got Eric Froelich with me, and it's time for us to transition. We're going into Modern now. So we were on 3 rounds of Vintage. Now it's going to be Modern for 4 rounds, and it's going to be interesting. We've got some pretty spicy lists sitting in front of us. Take a look at our first feature match players here as we head into Modern. We've got Shintaro, Ishimura, and Shintaro's got a pretty sweet list here, Efro.
He's got a list here. I'll give you that. And it does have some sweet
You're not willing to
go
for not for pretty sweet. You're going to notch that down.
It's definitely pretty sweet. It's a deck that we don't see very often because it generally just doesn't have any favorable matchups that we've had.
That's why we don't see it very often?
That's been my experience, and a lot of the Modern players that I know do not think that Tron has good matchups.
Yeah.
However, we have it in our feature match area.
We do.
Have Shintaro Ishimura, and he is not playing 12 Tron pieces. You can see on the screen he's got 4 Urza's Towers, but only 3 power plants and 3 mines, a couple expedition maps to go find them, 4 Gifts of Ungiven. That's the sweet card. Like the Gifts of Ungiven, what that card does, you search your library for up to 4 cards. It doesn't have to be 4 cards. 2 of them are going to go to your graveyard. You can get Unburial Rites along with something like Elish Norn or Iona. You can put one of those right into play. The Unburial Rites will go to the graveyard. You can flash that back. There's no way in this deck, I believe, to hard cast that Unburial Rites. So you have to get that into your graveyard. If you draw it, you do have 4 copies of Thirst for Knowledge. That will allow you to discard it should you need to do that. But yeah, this is basically a gift deck with some Tron pieces to get some fast mana. You can get a Mindslaver lock.
Yeah.
What that does, Mindslaver is a 6 mana artifact. 4 mana, tap, sacrifice. Take your opponent's next turn. You control them. You just take their mind, and
you
it's
turn
now
them into
yours.
A puppet.
They are your slave. And so that combination with Academy Ruins, which is a legendary land that allows you to put an artifact from your graveyard back on top of your library, you can lock your opponent out and take all the rest of their turns. It takes a lot of mana, but Tron makes a lot of mana. So that is the combination there.
Yeah.
And Ugin the Spirit Dragon, the new card at a Fate Reforged. And yeah, it's something that the Tron decks can cast that basically no other deck in Modern can consider casting.
That's right. So we'll keep an eye on Shintaro and how he does. His opponent, though, is Martin Dang, our current reigning Pro Tour champion. He won Pro Tour Dragons at Tarkir just a few short weeks ago. He also won a GP this season, Grand Prix Liverpool. Let's take a look at what Martin's up to. I don't want to say anything about the deck now because you might tell me it's not. It doesn't have favorable matchups. What do you think about what Martin's up to here? He's playing a Grixis Delver deck.
See, the nice thing about playing a deck that is able to apply pressure and you know, be the aggressor in a lot of matchups is that it has a completely different element than a deck like a Tron deck. One of the problems with Tron decks is that you are going to be the reactive deck, and if a lot of people have good answers for you, well, you're not going to have good matchups. The reactive or the proactive decks, the ones that are playing 1 mana threats like Delver of Secrets or filling up the graveyard with a card like Thought Scour, are a very powerful card in this deck that puts 2 cards into the graveyard, draws a card. You have 4 Snapcaster Mages and a bunch of Gurmag Anglers and Cassigers. So a bunch of Delve creatures that you're able to cast for really cheap mana. Often these cards only cost 1 mana. You can cast them basically as early as turn 2. Gitaxian Probe being a free way to get a card into your graveyard as well as draw a card. All these cards go very well with Young Pyromancer, a card we saw a lot in Vintage, to create a bunch of tokens. And then 1 mana removal spells, one of the best of all times. Lightning Bolt is just such a fantastic card. This deck really takes advantage of it, turns on your Delve elements and makes tokens. So being able to put pressure on your opponent is generally a good place to be in a format, especially if you're not exactly sure how the format or how the other players are going to choose their decks.
All right, so yeah, this has been I'm really curious to see how this goes. I know Thought Scour is one of the cards that jumped out to me in this deck as well, to just really fill up your graveyard and get those Delve spells going.
Tons of 1-0s we saw.
Yeah, lots of that too. All right,
sweet action.
Let's head down to the feature match here. We are ready to go for the first round of Modern here from the Magic Online Championship.